Hello and welcome to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and audiofiction. Before we start, this is a special one-shot and it has a trigger warning for depression and panic attacks. So if you feel like you are going to be affected by it, I would switch off, or if you want to listen but you find yourself are affected by it, there will be information in the description below and I hope you're okay. I hope you enjoy. Breathe. Breathe. Ladybug POV. Breathe. Just breathe. Marinette, you can do this. You've got this. Then why was it suddenly so hard to do the simplest of things? To just breathe. But the pain, it felt like there was a weight hanging on her chest, pushing down on her to the point it hurt to breathe. But she needed to. She needed to just breathe. Marinette, you can do this. You've got this. It hadn't been one thing. It was everything. All the tiny details, all the brief moments you don't think matter, had been plotting behind her back and descended on her all at once, in a single moment, finding yourself standing on the edge, waiting for it to push you over. And suddenly, you are falling. All you can feel is that churning sensation in your gut, the same one you get at a fairground ride as your stomach does a somersault, spinning around. Or those vivid dreams of tripping or falling, and even through sleep you feel it. That was the feeling that you constantly lived with inside her gut, making it difficult to eat or sleep. A reminder that you are still falling. Was there meant to be someone to catch you at the bottom, like all the stories and films suggest? But then again, they would have to know that she was falling in the first place. That was the hardest part, the impossible task, to let someone in. So many secrets, so many lies. It had got to the point Marinette now wore a mask, which left no one able to see the real her apart from Tiki. It had become the same routine, day after day, waking in the morning, no matter how you felt after the little sleep you had that night, placing on a smile. You became the happy daughter, the thoughtful friend, not able to remove it for a single moment until you were alone. And yet, she hadn't realized how bad it had become until she'd broken down after the most recent Akuma battle. There had been nothing different to this one. It hadn't been particularly hard. In fact, it had been simple, needing only the two of them and taking less than an hour to complete. So why was it at this moment she had cracked the second her fist had collided with Cat's in the usual pound it gesture? He had smiled at her and bid his farewell. That was until he had noticed the tears rolling down her cheeks. She hadn't noticed at first, but as his smile transformed to one of concern, her emotions bubbled up like a volcano bursting forth, and there was no stopping it. Cat had tried to make her stay, as she didn't even wipe away the tears from her face, causing a chilling, stinging sensation against her cheeks in the December weather. Once she was in the safety of her room, the stream of tears continued to the point her eyes were red and sore as she muffled the spurts of sound into her pillows. Tiki and the other Kwamis had tried to get her to talk, explain what was wrong, but she couldn't find a single word to explain it to herself, never mind to someone else. She could give a list to all the little things, but Who wanted to listen to her trying to explain how she had been late and forgotten her homework yet again, which had meant her parents receiving a letter and the look of disappointment on their faces as she told them another lie, or letting down her group of friends with another excuse? Who was left to listen to her once she had pushed them all away? She had woken after barely a few hours of sleep, unable to breathe, and not even the view from her balcony could soothe her heart. She had heard Cat once describing the need to run and jump, thinking at the time how foolish it was. And yet, here she was, flinging out her yo-yo across Paris to the point her muscles ached, finding herself perched on a random rooftop in the middle of the night, alone, staring at the horizon, waiting for the warm glow of dawn to rise, to show her there was hope, willing herself to breathe.
Ladybug! Oh, thank goodness! I've been searching for a sign of you all. Ladybug? Milady?
Cat's voice was muffled in the dense fog, filling her thoughts and senses. An enormous wave crashed down on her, removing the air from her lungs as his hand pressed down on her shoulder. She hadn't thought there was any tears left in her, that she was dried out, and yet here she was, crumpling in on herself and silently crying.
What's wrong? Ladybug, tell me, how can I help?
Said Cat, tugging at her body and drawing her into a tight embrace.
I need you to take a deep breath.
She shook her head. She couldn't. She felt the air leave her, but nothing was refilling the void. She couldn't breathe.
Milady, I need you to do this for me. Take a deep breath. Hold it, and then slowly release.
She shook her head again, and he drew her in closer to his body, her heart pounding against his, creating a slightly offbeat rhythm.
We will breathe together,
he whispered into her ear, his gentle, loving voice breaking through the murky mist.
In. That's it. Focus on my chest rising against yours, and now out. In.
He repeated the same line until the tears dried up and her body stopped shuddering against his. It felt like he was breathing for her, a precious lifeline, taking over her actions as she became a mere copy of his own, to the point her heartbeat mirrored that of his.
Good. Just keep breathing for me. Nothing else matters right now.
He released some of the tension in his grip as he relaxed into a cuddle. She had no idea of time, how long they had sat in that hug, but the moon was now giving way to the light she had been hoping for. Thanks, Cat. Her voice was fractured and barely made its way out of her mouth.
You don't need to talk if you're not ready. I'm happy to be here. You're not alone.
His words tapped at the thin crust she had formed over the chasm, causing it to crack. No. There was nothing left inside of her to express. There were no tears left to the point her mouth was dry. She tried to shrug her shoulders, but he held them down. It's silly.
Never say that. What you are feeling isn't silly. In fact, it's very serious. Don't dismiss your feelings like they are worthless.
His body tightened against hers, whilst his voice held a hint of anger in it.
I'm sorry, but please don't use that word. You are worth more than that.
But... It wasn't one thing. And after the battle, how could I? What other words could I use to describe it? She muffled into his shoulder, refusing to meet his gaze as he pulled back his head a little to look at her. Try picking one word or three to describe how you're feeling right now. But the rule is not to use words which will discredit your feelings. She peeled her head back and noticed for the first time his own eyes were red behind the mask. I'll try. Embarrassed? By the actions, not the feelings, she added in quickly as Cat's eyebrows popped together and then sprung back. Murky? Like a thick fog lives inside my head, and for the first time with you here, I can see a clear path forming in front of me. His soft gaze smiled at her, but he said nothing, allowing her to continue. I would say the last one. Overwhelmed. Everything crowding in on you, wishing for it to stop so you can breathe. She lowered her head onto his shoulder as if she'd run out of strength to hold it up and simply comfort from his touch. He stroked his hand down her back as if he was counting her breaths. Up, in, down, out. Are you able? Can you tell me? How can I help you? He said into her hair. This, what you are doing, being here now, is more that I could ask for, and I'm sorry. I should have asked. I should have. Shh. None of that matters right now. My only concern is you in this moment. And when you're ready to talk, know that I am here. And that includes just sitting in silence if the words are hard. But knowing you aren't alone. What you are feeling now, I understand. At the last words, she leaned back and her eyes met his. He had meant it. She saw a pain reflected she hadn't noticed before. I am here for you too, Chaton. Let's make a vow to one another to lean on each other when things get a little murky, knowing we aren't alone, that we have each other. That is a promise I would be happy to make. Why is asking for help one of the hardest things to do? It is easier to isolate yourself and yet makes things so much more worse. For me, I've never had someone I could lean on outside my family, and now being Cat Noir, who else can understand apart from each other? Yeah. I'm worried I would say something and they would work out I'm Ladybug. So I tell lies to everyone, including myself. With me, you don't need to lie. And we can talk general, so not to give clues. But keep me included with how you feel, and I will do the same back. After all, we are partners. We are the best of friends.
And I would hate to think my friend is going through what you were alone. When you are never alone. Not when you have me. Cat, thank you for finding me, for being here, for your big heart. Who knew a black cat could be so wise? You mean the world to me. So thank you. They wrapped their arms tighter around one another, with only the sound of their breathing between them. Thank you for listening to Breathe. I hope that you're okay, that you're not affected by it, but if you are, then there is information in the description below. Reach out, ask for help. Either it's a friend or a family member. Know that you're never alone. And yeah, I hope everyone's good at this time of year. I know it's Christmas and there's fluff and there's goodness, but there's also people who aren't so good. So reaching out to them, make sure that they're okay. And I will speak to you soon. Bye.